I will now introduce Syama Priya, who came to Gurudev. I remember back in the same year. I remember seeing you on the first tour, actually.
1996, yeah.
Yeah, 96. That first year on that first tour, and I think you took Harinam that year, and then Diksha shortly after, 2 years later in 98, yep. And both times in Badger, and you traveled with Gurudev for 5 years, and you've made it to India 19 times. So you've done a lot of parikram. So we're very lucky to have you sharing your...
Yeah,
right?
well, I'm surprised that you knew how many times I've been to India. Actually, now I've been 22 times, but...
22, okay.
Yeah.
Once you get to 19, 22, it's
yeah.
no problem. You're hitting some big numbers.
Wow.
So you're at 1:30 midday there, right? So if you can go up to offer your glorification, yes, up till 1 o'clock your time, that'll be fantastic.
Okay.
Before you start, Didi, anyone who's speaking or singing, if they could possibly put their devotee names in the Zoom, that would be wonderful. Just put your devotee names in, that'd be great. Thank you. Haribol.
Haribol. Oh my God, Lakaya Chakshur Milatanyena Tasmaya Shri Gurave Namaha. So I offer my dandavats millions of times over and over to my Diksha Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Gosvami Maharaj, and our entire parampara. And pranams to everyone here, and a special thank you to Yashodanandan Prabhu for organizing all of this. I've been watching some of these memories on YouTube, and everybody's been telling beautiful stories. Can you hear me? Am I speaking loud enough?
Absolutely perfect.
Am I speaking loud enough?
Perfect, absolutely perfect. Beautiful.
Okay. So I've been watching these memories of Srila Gurudev, and everybody's been telling really lovely stories and wonderful pastimes. And I couldn't decide which particular story to tell about Gurudev, but I wanted to share a few things that I heard Gurudev say again and again, personally, while I was there in the same room or the same place. And when Gurudev speaks, it would always be very personal. Whether there was 500 people in a room, he would always be speaking directly to our hearts individually. He was so personal. So that's how I felt with all of these things that he had said. So I wanted just to mention 4 things that he said that he would say over and over again. And it's always good for us to remember these things. One is a small point, but Gurudev did say it again and again. And it's a little bit it's hard to say what he would say now, because he would say these black boxes will cheat you, meaning the tape recorders. So we have to be very we should utilize technology, but we shouldn't rely on technology. The second one I want to talk about is the importance of shiksha, and this is such a big topic. Gurudev, through years, every year he would mention this. Every visit to each place he would mention this, but in the first, especially in 96, 97, Gurudev was talking about this in every single class, the importance of shiksha. The third thing I wanted to talk about is the importance of visiting the Holy Dham. And the fourth thing is, of course, and we all know this, but we always have to remember this, is not to criticize. So the first thing is a small thing, but do remember Gurudev saying it again and again, and even on my initiation in Badger, I was the only one in that initiation. And Krishna Balaba came in. He said, "Do you want to bring a friend in?" But she had a tape recorder. He said, "This black box will cheat you," and he said it many times during those years. And of course, everybody still taped it. He didn't say don't do this, but it's just something to think about. And of course, it's obsolete technology nowadays, but we do have to think about the role of technology and how important it is to actually be face to face. And why face to face? Obviously, like, thank you very much for organizing this these Zoom meetings. Obviously, these are unusual circumstances, but in general, face to face, so that we can serve each other, so that we can take prasadam together, give and receive prasad, so we can reveal our hearts in confidence, so that we can also do austerities by being there. We have to do some austerities just to be there. And we may, here we can have our cup of tea or whatever here beside our herbal tea and sit with our legs up, but there we have to sit up straight. We have to be in the holy dham or wherever it is, sitting on the floor. And the other thing is, Gurudev would always say that when devotees get together in a small space and we're all together in one place, we may irritate each other. And this is a good thing because it makes us humble. It's like putting a load of rocks in a bag, and they're all sharp rocks. So we all have all these rough edges. And when we put devotees in a bag together in a close quarters, that all our rough edges rub off and we begin to shine and become smooth. So that's one point. And the next point, the importance of taking shiksha, and this is so important. And Gurudev would say many times, without shiksha, then we fall down. And he did say that the reason that ISKCON was having problems is because they weren't taking shiksha, that they would read Prabhupada's books, they would associate together, but they weren't taking any shiksha from high-class devotees at that time, at the time when he came. He said actually he was acting on the promise he had made to Srila Prabhupada, Swamiji Prabhupada. He said Prabhupada had him come, and just before he left external consciousness, Prabhupada said, "Please help my disciples. I haven't been able to give them," they were just so new. They were, actually, he may have even said worse things than that. But he said, "Please help my disciples." And Gurudev promised him that he would do that, to give the Prabhupada disciples shiksha, so they wouldn't dry up, so they wouldn't fall down. And he said, "I never wanted to give initiation and come to the West and give initiation in the West, but they have thwarted me. They have not allowed me to give shiksha, so I've been forced to come." So this is why Gurudev came to the West, was to give shiksha. And on the order of Srila Prabhupada. And he had 3 missions coming to the West. One was to take the foot dust of our Srila Prabhupada, all the places where Srila Prabhupada installed the deities, to enliven the Prabhupada disciples that were drying up, and to preach in general. So he came and he was giving shiksha this way, but he also told us that we must take shiksha. he is our Diksha Guru, at least for some of us. He is our Diksha Guru, but he also gave us Shiksha. But we should also now be always taking Shiksha from an advanced devotee, Mahabhagavat. He said, what does Guru mean? So Shiksha and Diksha. Diksha means he gives the mantras for initiation. And Shiksha is instruction. But what does Guru mean? It means without duplicity. So that Guru that's without duplicity, who never thinks all these disciples are my disciples. He sees that, oh, all of these devotees have come and they're like dear friends that have saved me from a great calamity. Actually, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada used to say like that. My disciples are like dear friends that have saved me from a great calamity. This is the mood of a bona fide guru. And the Mahabhagavat is not contained within any institution. He said we shouldn't be like a frog in a well. We should be broad-minded. We should see that all of those devotees that from our parampara, there's a broad tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual family. And we're all part of that family. And all the Mahabhagavats are so magnanimous, and they will accept anyone from that family. And they'll accept hippies, and they'll accept anyone who's sincere. They'll say, please come. Gurudev would say, I'm collecting flowers and making a garland to offer to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. Sometimes he would say, I have a mango flower, very sweet. Sometimes, sometimes people were like banana flowers. Actually, Gurudev liked banana flowers. It means that banana flowers have a bitter inside that has to be carefully removed. But it makes a very nice sabji. So like that. And that's how Gurudev saw us, as flowers to offer to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Radha Krishna. So this is a guru. This is their mood. And we must always be taking shiksha from a guru with this kind of mood. Gurudev talked about, actually in Australia one time, he was talking about Rasamrita, and he described, there was a Brahmin, and he said he went to Durga Devi, and he was asking for so much wealth. And she was so merciful to him because she didn't give him wealth. Gurudev described that actually Radharani and Durga Devi are not so different. He said there's definitely some difference in mood, but they're not so different. That Durga is Mahamaya, Radharani is Yogamaya, but beyond Yogamaya, more than that. She's more than that. But they're not so different. In some ways different, in some ways there's some similarity. So in this case, Durga was acting as Radharani, being very merciful, and gave this Brahmin Gopal mantra in his dream and said, you must chant this mantra 3 times each day, morning, noon, night, like this 3 times a day. Morning, dusk, dawn, noon, and dusk. But because it was a dream, the Brahmin didn't know for sure that this is a true initiation. But then Gop Kumar came and he said, oh, I know that Durga has given you, Durga Devi, she has given you this mantra, and why aren't you chanting it? And he said, oh, you know so much about me. How do you know? And he said, oh yes, I know these things. So in this case, Durga was his Shiksha Guru, the Brahmin Shiksha Guru. And Gokumar was his, Durga Devi was his Diksha Guru, giving the mantra. And Gokumar was his Shiksha Guru. So in this way, then Guru gives our relationship with our mantras, with our bhajan. Shiksha Guru expands on that relationship, how to do our deity worship, how to do our bhajan. And thing is, Guru is one. Externally, they may be very different. For instance, Gurudev was not like Prabhupada in the way he looked, the way he spoke. Nothing was really the same, but Gurudev would always say, I'm giving the same wine in a new bottle. So in this way, we should understand that when we take shiksha from any high-class devotee, this is one of the ways that we come in contact with Gurudev. Because Gurudev said, I'm closer than the air you breathe. So he comes to us when we're doing our ani, when our Cheta Guru in the heart, when we're reading his books, when we're listening to his classes. And one of the ways he comes to us is also through our Shiksha Guru. So we should understand this point, how important it is. And Gurudev stressed it so much, this point. The next is that we should be in the Holy Dham physically. Of course, most important to be in the Holy Dham always by heart and mind. And in these circumstances, may not always be possible for us to go. We may not even be allowed out of our country or anything. It may not be possible, but by hook or by crook, Gurudev would say, by hook or by crook, beg, borrow, or steal, if possible, we should come to the Holy Dham. After every time he was in a place, I traveled with Gurudev in so many different places. For the first 5 years, after every every week when he was in a particular city, he'd spend a week in a particular city or a few days. He would say to us in the early days, he would say, are you coming to the next place? And sometimes we'd have to say, no, we can't come, we have to go to work or something, but he would always ask us. But also after every single place he was at, as he was leaving, he would say, you're all invited for parikram. Please come, he would say. It's very expensive for you. You don't like the prasadam. It will be very austere for you. You don't like the accommodation. But we should try and come anyway. We should all try and come by hook or by crook, beg, borrow, or steal. And he said this every time. So hopefully we won't be bound in our home countries forever. So we have to remember what it's actually like to actually take that foot dust in the holy dhams. Go, the Mahabhagavats are there. That's why we go to the holy dham. Take those saffron dust particles from their lotus feet in that place. And it's very important because we can try and be there in heart and mind, but there's something special also about being there physically that is important. It's my favorite memories of Gurudev are being in Varshana with Gurudev or Dangali, and he's sitting, on one side of Dangali and giving class, or so many things like this. And also seeing him associate with his god brothers like Srila Trivikram Maharaj and Srila Vaman Maharaj, especially Srila Trivikram Maharaj and Gurudev would banter, and it was such a loving exchange. It was almost like a little bit of a cheeky banter, a little bit, and but they were had such a sweet exchange. And this is how we understand bhakti. We understand bhakti from going to a bhakta, somebody who actually has Krishna prem. Gurudev said, what is my mission? My mission is to distribute love and affection, unata ujvala ras, the highest braj prem. And how do we understand this? We can see by example how that love and affection that flows between pure devotees. This is extraordinary. This is an extraordinary thing to actually witness. And of course, that we shouldn't criticize. It's very disheartening to see so many devotees criticizing each other for reasons that are not important, not at all important. Gurudev said there's 3 C's in spiritual life. Don't criticize, don't complain, keep chanting. So don't criticize and don't complain doesn't mean that we let devotees be abused. We have to always stand up against, if we see any devotees being abused, we have to always stand up. One god sister of ours went to Gurudev and said, Gurudev, please take away my anger. And Gurudev said, no, you keep this anger, but keep it away until and unless you see somebody abusing devotees, then you can use that anger. So when we say don't criticize, don't complain, that doesn't mean that we let abuse slide. That's not okay. But people are criticizing about and also, of course, I'm doing the same thing. And I think partly, social media spreads out it actually seeps into our everyday real life as well. And, there's too much criticism going on about things that are really not so important. And of course, Gurudev said, devotees should be compassionate towards everyone, to even an ant. We should see the cows and the calves and we should think, oh, they're very scared. In the West, when you see cows and calves, Gurudev, I remember a few times he mentioned seeing cows and calves, and he said from going from San Francisco to LA, there's a big abattoir there. He said, I felt very sorry to see all these cows and calves there. And they were looking very scared. And you just want to say to them, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That you should hear this mantra just once. He also said on that same occasion, he said, I can see that these cows that are there in this, it was like a smelly field, and where they were waiting to go for slaughter. He said, I can see that those cows have also been men that have killed cows. This is why they're in this situation. But still, he was always so compassionate. There was a devotee who had horses in Badger, and he whispered in the horse's ear a Maha Mantra, that this is the compassion. He would see everybody like this, that everybody is a servant of Krishna, all living entities, that this is our real nature. So, and one more thing that Gurudev would always say, and the world is in a very strange place. It's very different than it was in 1996. Now it's very different. Gurudev would always say, don't be hopeless. Don't be fearful. Be strong. Always he would say this to us. And especially don't be hopeless in our bhajan, that we should always feel hopeful, because actually we've come in contact with a pure devotee. So the fact that we will reach eventually we'll reach Krishna Prem is inevitable. Eventually we'll reach, as long as we don't criticize and become offensive, you know. And it's not like not from a small thing, but sometimes through bad association. There have been a few people who had become very offensive, and we never saw them again. And we have to be very careful with this, because we are on such a fortunate trajectory. Gurudev described that first touch of Krishna consciousness is like if you've been wandering with no food and no nourishment in a desert for several days, for a long time, and somebody gives you a huge feast. From that very first bite of that prasadam, you begin to feel satisfied. So in this way, that first touch of Krishna consciousness is immediately we can relax, we can feel some satisfaction that there's some love and affection in this world, that there's something. And the more that we develop our sukriti, the more that we associate with devotees, the more and more full we will become in this. And he's given us everything, and we just have to follow his instruction, always take association of the high-class devotees, always chant, and try to be very humble and serve the devotees. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Syama, Priya, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, there's some. I just need to mute someone. Is that better? Can you? Yeah. Such a beautiful glorification, and I'm so happy to see your bhakti thriving within you. As you were sharing that, I felt a lot of transmission with all those different instructions, and I was very grateful to you at the beginning, because I noticed as you were saying about the black box, you were thinking, oh, I hope I'm not invalidating everything the Bhakti Zoom team is doing. And I can feel like that you did it so beautifully. I wholeheartedly agree. But one thing I have to disagree with you is, don't worry, devotees can irritate each other on Zoom. We don't need to be in the same room to irritate. Well, one thing I want to ask you, though, about Shiksha Guru is that, obviously, I mean, I had some association with Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Maharaj, which was really beautiful. I had no doubt about his status.
Me too.
And you said about the qualification of Shiksha Guru is no duplicity. My understanding, and this may be wrong, is that a Madhyam has no duplicity. So if we're not confident that someone's on the Uttama plane, then I'm assuming, because I do take Shiksha from a number of people, I don't have the vision to know what platform someone's on. I mean, I knew Gurudev, it's self-evident. You have to be a frog with no eyes to not appreciate Gurudev's, you know, standing. But I don't have that vision for everybody. So if you're getting Shiksha on multiple Madhyam level, is that okay for the nourishing of your relationship with Diksha Guru? I mean, what would you advise on that? Because that's not such an easy situation to, what's your perception of that?
Well, Gurudev, well, for one thing, we can have many Shiksha Gurus, and we know this. So we can have many Shiksha Gurus, but also Gurudev said that there's always one pure devotee on the planet. And actually, all of our acharyas have said this. There's always at least one. So if there was no pure devotee on the planet, then actually everything would implode. But it's this whole idea of love makes the world go round. This is actually truth. There's some truth in this, that without love and affection, we can't survive as a planet. But even having one pure devotee on the planet provides that love and affection, and it goes, travels it like a ripple effect. So there is always one Uttama Bhagavat on the planet. Whether we're associating with that Uttama Bhagavat means that we need to have the Sukriti to do it. And the best thing is to try and build our Sukriti, and like you said, associate with as many devotees as we can on various levels, and take shiksha from those advanced devotees, and ask those advanced devotees, where are they going to hear Harikatha?
There are quite a few with a good track record of finding them early and finding, that's good. That's good. I like that. I will, thank you. I love what you said about parampara and the tree of parampara. It's something that we're very passionate about, to go beyond this kind of guru ghetto mentality and realize that Akhandan Vyeshta is working, just it's the eighth aphorism of Das Mula, Achinta Bed Beda Tattva. You see all qualities in one and all, and it's so important. You cannot take an acharya and divorce that acharya from the flow of the river of Hladini Shakti to the estuary of Krishna consciousness. You have to. Well, I thought that was really beautiful, and it was great to remember how Gurudev said, beg, borrow, or steal to get to the Holy Land. And maybe today it should be beg, borrow, and steal. Maybe we do need to all three at the same time,
Yeah.
And also going there, of course, absorbs all of our senses. I think that's the thing. Like on the black box, like one of the reasons why I do a lot of these Bhakti Zoom sessions is because it ensures that I show up, because there's a commitment to other people. If I just do it in my own time, I might not show up. And also it does absorb a lot of my senses. But you're right, if you're in the physical domain with other devotees, it's more sense absorption, and everything from Bhagavad Gita all the way through to Chaitanya Charitamrita is about the full absorption of all of our five senses in Krishna consciousness, so that we're not distracted by the negative, and so we can accentuate the positive. So I thought that was a really great message. And there was a thread of what you said, which I'm going to put in my own words to sort of embellish what you're saying, which is that it was coming from association, from taking proper shiksha. You end up you want to cultivate yourself as the message. You are actually the embodiment of the message. Like, we can have all the fancy words, we can have all the fancy preaching, but people they either see the joy in us, and they either see the bhakti in us or don't. And an animal can pick that up, let alone a human being, Like a dog will sense whether you're friendly or not. A cow will sense whether you're friendly or not. A human being even more so. So that association, there's this beautiful verse about how the saffron dust particles from the foot of the pure devotee are transported through the ether to the ears, and we drink it through the ears in the ether to drink the nectar of the pure devotee and absorb that, and that's the transmission that we get. And only by being in their company can we do that. So that was a beautiful message. And I knew you were going to mention about don't criticize. When you said about I'm going to come up with 4 things, you actually did 5 in the end. For some reason, I thought you were going to open on criticize. It's a big one for me. I think it's really important. And I wanted to add one thing, which is I've experienced this. When I want to criticize someone in my mind, what I do, because it's usually, obviously it's a devotee, and they have so much great qualities, I will attempt, depending on the relationship, I will attempt to glorify that person to someone else. And I will attempt also to say something to them, which is the appreciation of their savior directly. If I can do those 2 things, the filling of the cup of glorification empties any proclivity to criticism. It kind of helps me go kind of like the next level. I find that super helpful. I've done that on a number of occasions. And the other thing you touched on, which I want to be a bit more explicit about, is that we tend to, not everybody, but there is a lot of conversation about conspiracy theories and vaccines, pro and against. And I'm not.
I didn't want to say it directly, but I was definitely thinking of that.
I'm not saying pro or anti-conspiracy.
Exactly.
It's not our job. Like as Prabhupada said when the Vietnam War was on, he was saying explicitly, it's not our job to protest against that war. Our job is to preach the holy name and to preach Krishna consciousness. We need to remember that, because the real conspiracy theory is taking us away from Krishna consciousness and talking about Krishna consciousness. That's where our Shakti, that's where our Bhakti is, and that's where we need to be as a mission. So I'm just throw that out there. And the last thing you touched on was about don't be hopeless. And yeah, we only have to be glanced on by one lava, which is that's the equivalent, I think, of 1/16th of a second. That glance of a pure devotee on us for one lava, 1/16th of a second, guarantees us to get back to Godhead. That's extraordinary. So we don't even have to have faith in ourselves. If we have a little bit of faith that our guru has faith in us, that's enough to get us back. So thank you for a beautiful glorification.